All set?
Yep.
Okay, this is the June 8th meeting of the City of Gardner Public Service Committee. The purpose of today's meeting and the agenda item, the only agenda item is to review the Mayor's proposed budget for fiscal year 2023 for the departments that are within our purview, which are the Department of Public Works, Engineering, Conservation, Airport, Water, Sewer, Recreation, and Municipal Recreation. Councilors Walsh and Jurlowitz are present. We're hopeful to have Councilor Tyros join us by phone. He's needs to join remotely. We've had some technical difficulty achieving that for the time being, but hopefully that'll be resolved as the meeting moves along. So we'll get started with this, and also present are the DPW Director, the City Engineer, the DPW Secretary, Dan Forty from the Recreation Department, and Gardner Schools, and Mayor Nicholson. Thank you all for joining us. First item on our agenda, or on our schedule, is the proposed budget for the City of Gardner Conservation Commission. The Katie Gardner, the conservation agent, wasn't able to be with us. She's on vacation this week. And so, Mayor, would you like to address there? It's fairly straightforward, but would you like to comment on it?
Sure thing, Mr. Chairman. This does reflect a proposed 2% cost of living adjustment for the non-union employee conservation agent. The rest has remained flatlined from the previous year's budget at level funding.
Okay. I have no questions regarding the Conservation Commission, Councilor Jurlowitz?
Nor do I.
Okay. So we'll move along. The next item is survey. The survey department. Mayor, would you like to start with a comment on that?
Just a reminder that this is our engineering branch of the city. It is known as survey due to the way it's worded in the city ordinances. It does reflect a 2% cost of living adjustment for the non-union employees. For the most part, things are budgeted level with what was budgeted last year, except for those salary adjustments. Director Gardner is here as his department oversees the conservation.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know if anybody was going to be here. Ms. Biergard, thank you for joining us. When we're done with the survey department, we'll return to see if you have anything that you'd like to comment about the Conservation Commission budget.
Thank you.
But, Ms. Mayor, I apologize.
Yeah, okay.
I was distracted during your comments. The department had this salary for the department and is split among, total salary split among 3 departments, as I understand it. Is that correct? And it's, for this one, it's the survey department, the water department, and the sewer department.
That is correct.
Is that correct?
As is the only other employee of the survey department, the GIS technician. That is split between water, sewer, and survey as well.
Okay. And are there any salaries in this survey department that are beyond, other than union?
There are no union employees in this department.
Okay. Are there any? You had mentioned 2% for
George, it's Rob Oliver, the city. I'm going to put you on speakerphone. Sure, hang on. Councilor Tyros, are you there?
I am.
Okay. Councilor Tyros, Jim Walsh, we started the meeting. We didn't know if we were going to be able to connect with you. We did try earlier, and we had trouble getting through.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm here now. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we've just gotten started, and we went through the Conservation Commission budget, but we're going to we're going to return to it in a few minutes. We're going through the survey department budget at the present time. Did you have any questions regarding the well, before we get to that?
No, ready to continue. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Arnold, is there anything, any comment that you wanted to make about, on this one?
No, just in case you're wondering about the split, I believe the department head salary is split 50% city, 25 water, 25 sewer. The GIS, I believe, is everything but $8,000, I believe, is paid for out of the city. $8,000 is covered, $4,000 water, $4,000 sewer.
Okay.
Just so you.
Okay, but there are no, you had mentioned in your budget address that some positions were other than 2%.
Not in this department.
Not in this department.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to be asking you that in each of the departments.
I know.
I had Rob, anything that you wanted to comment on that?
No, just reiterating what the mayor said, is that essentially the department's budget is level funded with last year.
Okay. Councilor Journal, do you have anything, questions that you had?
No, not at this time. I think I'm set with this department.
I had a few, if I may. And it's been a little while since I've been on the service committee, so forgive me if I'm repeating or if I'm asking questions about the answers to which should be obvious. Line item 533, information technology. What does that cover?
For the most part, we have most of our software services now, rather than buying software directly from a company, everything's subscription based. So a lot of the information technology pays for our, a big chunk of that is the ArcGIS online software that the city uses for the GIS department. Also we have CAD software that is subscription service out of that. And that eats up the largest chunk of that. There's some other smaller expenses, but those are the big ones.
Okay. The other question I had is line item 538, professional services. The budgeted amount requested, which is the same as last year, was $18,000. Only $4,415 of which have been used in the current fiscal year, and I'm wondering, and just under $7,000 was used the previous year. I'm wondering why we need $18,000 if we're only using such a small amount.
Professional services would pay for outside consultants, other engineers, other companies on different things. Forgive me for my inexperience and what's been done in the past, but it's one of those line items where you don't necessarily know what your expenses will be for the year if things come up. I'm assuming that's why in the past it's been carried at that amount, and perhaps why it hasn't been completely depleted over the course of the year.
Mr. Chairman, if I may
Yes.
as well.
I was going to ask you for,
Oh,
I mean, it's your budget. So.
Yes. Back in 2020, if you look, we expended close to $15,500. I think a lot of that deals with the different MS4 and stormwater management regulations that have recently been implemented by the federal EPA. We weren't sure what consultants we were going to hire as a result of those new regulations that are coming out. The new ordinances that we've recently passed, the regulations that are going to be coming before this committee that are currently being drafted by our consultants there. Aside from that too, I think a lot of that is also related to the change in personnel in the survey department that we had the past year. Also related with some of the projects that were covered by different sources of funding in terms of, be it the water loan that we took out that had engineering costs associated with the loan cost, the different funds that we've received through different state grant funding from the pandemic stimulus packages that were received too, that covered a lot of the costs that would normally have come out of this account.
Okay, so it's your assessment that the $18,000 remains an amount that is reasonably needed for this service?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next question I had is line 542, EPA NPDES. It was budgeted at $40,000 last year. None of it was used. Previous year, none of it was used. $2,500 was used in fiscal 2020. It's budgeted and funded, requested and funded $40,000 this year. First of all, what is it?
This is the city's efforts to comply with the requirements of the EPA MS4 permit. It requires substantial outside consulting. And this is, I know funds have been encumbered in the past. The compliance is a multi-year plan. We're going to year 4. I believe it carries out 10 years or beyond, where the requirements continue to ramp up, where eventually we're going to be into testing at drainage outfalls. There's quite a bit that goes into it. So in a way, this is saving towards our compliance requirements moving forward. I know there's money still in there that will be used, that was encumbered. But it's the biggest commitment we have, and the city has, in terms of this department, but it's basically to compliance for that meeting all the requirements that the EPA places on us.
And that's on nitrogen, Mr. Chairman, that's what the NIPD's acronym stands for, it's the nitrogen levels in the stormwater.
I'm looking at the tail end of the budget listing. I don't see any encumbered amount for this item.
Maybe I misspoke.
Well, I'm just trying to understand it.
Yeah, it's, I mean.
And nothing was spent in the present year or last, or the previous one?
I don't have that.
So last year according to my copy, Mr. Chairman, last year we encumbered 16,800. Line item 546.
We had hired a consultant to go over and sample all the outfalls and then send them out to the lab. I have lab fees in my book.
Yeah, that was for the, but nothing for the, that was encumbered from the previous year.
Yes.
So there was, in '22, we encumbered 16.8 from the '21 budget.
Yes.
So that's what's there now?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and what reason do we have to think that plus 40 grand is gonna get spent in fiscal '23?
Just based on the requirements of the permit, what the consultant has previously prepared for us as kind of a roadmap to that compliance, all the steps that are required. I mean, this has been there, we've known, I think the planning goes back, and the funding goes back to the beginning of the permit, even prior to that, when we knew it would become a requirement, and looking down the road at the requirements of the permit, and the more technical it gets, the more the city has to do, the more we're gonna rely on our consultants.
It's the permit for the,
It's EPA, it's the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination Service. It's the MS4 is the area within the city that's been classified as EPA.
so it's for the sewage, permit for the sewage treatment plant?
No, it's for the stormwater discharges.
Excuse me.
Yep. So it's an ongoing multi-year thing that requires us funding, frankly, to meet those requirements.
And there was nothing that needed to be done fiscal '22?
Things were done, in the remainder of those funds, the encumbered, is what's left. In '23, I think ICS easily using that, as well as,
Well, I'm just saying in '22, there was 40 grand budgeted, nothing spent.
For the latest report.
oh, for the latest report?
Yeah, so this was printed in, I think May 14th was when we ran that report.
Okay.
Well, there's something more recent that,
We can get you that concern.
no, have we spent some of that 40 grand or 56 grand?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't, work has been done.
Oh, I'm just trying to say, it's not an insignificant amount of money that was budgeted, and there's no record of any of it being spent in the existing year.
Okay. Moving forward, I do believe the funds will be required, and I think it's prudent that we have them there. I think we'd be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't have them
You
there.
need 40 grand.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll see what it looks like in a year. Anything else?
No, I'm all set with this.
Councilor Tyros, anything else on survey?
I'm all set.
Okay, thank you. The next Oh, yeah, we were gonna go back to the Conservation Commission, now that we have Director Beauregard with us. And he's here and speaking on behalf of the Conservation Agent. Anything you want to tell us about the budget, Mr. Beauregard?
Mr. Chairman, not really. It's level funded, other than the increase in pay for the salary, which is half of what the Conservation Planning Agent receives in salary.
And the other half,
Comes from the planning board.
planning board. Okay. Very good. We brought this up earlier, there were no questions, or Councilor Tyros, any questions about the conservation budget?
No, looks all fine. Just that, cost of living increase, so it's good.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That's all then.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for joining us.
I was 20 minutes late last year. That was a
I've never been first before. That's the thing.
Well, first in the eyes of the Public Service Committee.
I appreciate that.
Next item is the Public Works Department budget. Mr. Mayor, you want to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This does reflect a 2% cost of living adjustment for the non-union employees, a 2% cost of living adjustment for the members of the AFSCME union, so that's the clerical staff that's here. The other collective bargaining units in the DPW Association, as they were involved with a national union and then disassociated, so now they're their own association there. That contract included a readjustment of the steps and a hiring freeze that came at the suggestion of the union themselves in consultation with the city and the director of the department here. So that did not require an additional appropriation to cover any increases as a result of that readjustment of the steps and the step scale.
Okay, thank you. So there's no other than the stated 2% is offered for anybody within this
That is correct.
department, is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Director, anything you'd like to comment on for the DPW budget?
Yeah, just to, again, reiterate, as far as the salary crew line item, the proposal was to do a hiring freeze of 3 laborers, which more or less is an adjustment of about $100,000, rough numbers. So it will still end up hiring a couple of employees, because I believe we're six shy at the moment. So when everything's all said and done, we'll have 3 vacancies, 3 labor vacancies in the department, which will be about $100 grand. That $100 grand was used to offset the 10% increase for the salaries.
Okay, understand. So there are no new positions that are within the budget? The Councilor Gillard, any questions about the DPW Public Works budget?
This was completed, item 584, the 22 actuals were in the negative, and then the department had requested 1.2 million roughly. Can you speak to that?
So this is something that we request that the department put as much new equipment as they could use across the fleet in the budget every year, just so it can be seen if we were to actually get the equipment that we need or update the fleet to its entirety, what that cost would be. It did go in the red just because there was some equipment purchase, but if you can remember at the last council meeting, there was a transfer appropriation made from the sewer retained earnings account into the DPW new equipment account that brought that account back up to the red. That was the sand, yes. Yeah.
I request everything when I fill my budget out, just so make the mayor aware, you know, this is
I
my
assume it's
needs.
somewhere in the capital improvement budget as
Yes.
well, or
Yes.
proposal rather.
Yeah.
You know, even on road resurfacing, I request every street to be paved as far as it needs it, just so you know,
Aware.
we're aware of it.
That makes sense. Defer to, back to the chairman.
Councilor Tyros, any questions on the Public Works budget?
Yes, I did have a question, and forgive me if this was covered previously, but I know item 573, street lighting, has been, the street lighting account's been brought up in previous public service committee meetings, and I was wondering if this was intentionally being underfunded from previous run rates for a reason, or if it's just kind of common practice for us.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
for that one. This is we're currently working on seeing if we can reallocate the solar credits that we have. Right now, the main issue that we have with our streetlights is the way that our net metering credits are being allocated across the different accounts in which they're supposed to be servicing. So we are meeting with myself, the city auditor, the city purchasing director, and then our contractor for our solar credits to see exactly what it is that's going on here. So while the budget did go down from the department request, it did still go up $10,000 than what was budgeted for last year. So we'll see if that helps us there, but the transition to LED lights mixed with the solar net metering credit should be able to help with all of that.
That makes complete sense. Thank you.
Anything else? Oh, you have a comment on that?
Just a couple of comments on the throw-up. If you look at the item 565 and 564, the parking meter and the traffic meter maintenance, right now they've been level funded at 40 and 20 respectively for the last probably 10 years. We've gone out to bid for line painting. The line painting bid came in. We were paying 18 grand to paint all the city streets, paint them all. That bid has now come into 30 grand. So just like everything that has to do with fuel or paint or a bunch of other items, there's a couple of line items in my budget that are really gonna, I'm probably gonna be coming to the council in the future.
Well, I had a question about a couple of, two items, the questions I had are about those two line items. We'll get to that, but you've explained part of it anyway.
And I'm sure you're gonna bring up vehicle fuel. That's another
Oh, well,
giant line item.
Actually, I don't think I did. I don't think I was going to because it seems self-evident.
I just want to point out, obviously,
Sure.
that it's been funded at 220 grand. I believe we allocated more funds this year, and now things stay as is. I'll probably end up coming in front of the council again next year, and that's fuel for all the city vehicles as well.
Mm-hmm.
Along the same lines of 572, the energy utilities, it seems that's budgeted lower than even what we spent this year, and that would be likely to increase as well. 572, the energy utilities is budgeted 25,000. We've current totals on this
25.5.
25 is already over 25.
Yeah, that's when we always just guess what happens at it each year. We'll watch the market and see what happens with the supplemental budget.
Oh, you're confident we'll have a supplemental budget, Aaron?
We'll see what happens, that's like.
Well, okay. Anything else, Councilman?
Nope.
Let's see. So the traffic maintenance, 564, you've addressed that briefly already, but I had 564, traffic maintenance.
Yep.
That's line, and what is that in particular?
It's lines and signs. It's all, I'll try to, traffic maintenance and parking maintenance, it's more or less lines and signs. Both line items are for the painting of all your crosswalks, your center lines, your gutter lines.
And has a lot of that been expended in the last few weeks?
Actually, yes, it has.
And the reason I ask is that it was budgeted 40,000 for the current fiscal year, only 12.1 was used as of the printing of this.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is covering paying for the line painting for the city. I don't believe it is. I don't
And,
think
but the
that's-
previous year, almost 30 grand was used, and 30 grand was used the year before, so it just seemed odd that it was down under 12, but that's because of the time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't paid we just got the lines painted in the city.
I understand.
Again, same with the traffic, the parking.
And paint is expected to, oh, well, you just got the bid. Okay, and then parking meter maintenance, how is that different?
That is all areas, all maintenance of lines and signs under the parking meter area downtown, throughout the parking. So we try to split up the cost.
Is that part of the same bid?
Yes, it's all the same, it's all allocated.
And again, it was 20 grand, it was that was budgeted, well, it appears that 2236.88 was budgeted, or was actually used last year.
A lot hasn't been painted in the downtown with the paving projects and construction projects that have happened in the past 2 years. So that's really why those have been lower, is that we haven't had to go back and paint the parking spots.
Okay, and this is, so the increase is primarily due to the cost of paint?
Well, there's no increase, it's 20 grand, that's what we've been paying for,
Well, what was used 2 years, in
Versus the actuals.
the actuals for 2020, fiscal 2020 was just under $6,900.
Okay.
And the actuals for 2021 was just over $4,100.
I don't believe we did a lot of the painting downtown last year, or the year before for the painting because of the project, all the excavation. We did the phase one of the water project went up Main Street and up Central Street, all the way through the entire, half of the parking meter area. So I don't believe any of the painting was done on a large portion of the downtown over the last 2 years. It's been sporadic, I'll say that.
And, okay. So this is mostly down, a lot of the parking meter maintenance is obviously in the downtown.
Yeah, City Hall Ave, Pleasant, Main, Parker, Central,
Yep.
Westline.
Okay, next one I had is unaccepted road maintenance. Haven't used anything in the last couple of years. And we've got $5 grand budgeted for the current year, none of which has been used as of the writing of this.
That'll,
I'll post $5 grand again.
I believe we have to fund that line item in order for us to maintain unaccepted roadways. I believe that was the city solicitor's orders.
In that amount?
I don't know if it's that amount.
No,
but it's
any amount.
Any amount.
Yeah.
I propose we cut it by $4,000.
I would be okay with that.
Okay. What do you think about that?
I favor that, yeah, second that.
Okay. Councilor Taros, any thoughts on this topic?
I would also support that, and I would ask Director Arnold, could you mention or give an example of unaccepted road?
Oh, Sumi Road,
It's off of West Street?
yes, all the roads that are around Kendall Pond are all unaccepted. Where else?
All around Parker Pond, those are all unaccepted for the most part.
No.
Suomi, the other ones are off of that one too.
Yeah, the very end of Chelsea Street, trying to get some of those.
The end of Diamond.
And Diane,
I think
there's a
there's an
section.
extension off of Leighton and Drive that's unaccepted as well.
Yep,
Sand Street, is it?
Correct. there's even a middle section between Wilkins and Fredette. There used to be 2 cul-de-sacs, there's an unaccepted portion in that. Same goes for Harvard Street up the top, which even though these funds weren't used, the city did pave the entire length of Harvard, which we used city money out of that. It's just a numbers game kind of within the budget.
Okay.
Just to give you
So the
some-
proposal, and because we're doing partly remote, we're gonna have a roll call vote for any proposed cuts. So the motion made by me and seconded by Councilor Lowitz was to cut $4,000 from line 568, which is actually city line item 14-421. No, it's the account number 52038.
Yes, so the department's number is the 14421, the account number is the 52038,
038.
yeah.
Okay, and so that is proposed to cut $4,000 from that account. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, Councilor Taros,
Yes.
Councilor Lowitz,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So unanimous to recommend cutting $4,000 from this item.
I should point out, at the end of the fiscal year, when we're encumbering money, if there's a line item, say unaccepted road maintenance, at the end of the year, I take that and then move it down into, I encumber it as road maintenance. So
So
it's
we
more or
have
less,
roads-
it's just more or less removing money from our maintenance of the streets, one way or the other.
So you have encumbered, from last year, you have encumbered road maintenance. No, it's just road maintenance.
Yes,
I don't see anything for, you just put it under road maintenance?
correct.
Okay, so there's an encumbered amount of maybe $325 from last year. Has that been used?
Yes, because I'm actually transferring money from our salary crew, which I believe was put in front of council last night,
Yep.
to put money from the salary crew to bring it down the road maintenance, because I believe we're in the red in that.
Okay.
Again, because of the cost of asphalt, so I just caution against cutting against road maintenance.
Well, we're cutting unaccepted road maintenance. Proposing it. All we do is recommending it.
Okay.
Council will decide. Let's see. The last one, the next one I had was tree planting. We had 10 grand budgeted for this year, but none spent as of this time. Are we planting any trees this spring?
We are. What happened was, this almost goes back a couple of years ago, where we had a drought, and I made the call not to go plant trees, because I thought we were gonna lose it, so we're spending encumbered money of tree planting from last year.
Mhm.
that going forward, so. It had to do with I think the drought was 2 years ago, so we're kind
So
of,
you had encumbered 6,800 from the previous year.
I
And
believe I
then
encumbered a full
you were
10.
you were budgeted 10.
correct.
So, and what do you expect to spend?
Honestly, I don't think I've spent $1 out of my existing budget, out of my existing tree budget, so that 10 grand, I don't believe I'm gonna get to plant in my upcoming budget, so I would have no problem cutting that,
Cutting the 10 grand?
cutting the 10 grand.
Okay, so the PPW director suggests the cut of, from the proposed budget of our line item 578, the DPW line item 14421, account number, city account number 42192, tree planting of $10,000. Councilor Gonzalez?
I move to cut the $10,000 from that line item from the budget.
Is there any further discussion on it? Not, Councilor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilor Tyros?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
I was gonna give a condition to put my road maintenance money back.
This isn't a bargain session. Oh,
I'm trying.
maybe it could be.
I'm trying.
It might be.
Maybe just back into regular road maintenance.
Just want to make a note here.
There are 4 trees in Monument Park that we're gonna have to be replacing in the
Yes.
next year,
Yep.
due to the Dutch ash disease.
Yes.
But those will be done
Relatively.
soon.
Yeah, and I have money in my
From
budget for that.
the budget for that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. At 10 grand. Please. Which is 52192. Okay. Building rehab. We're budgeted 10 grand for the current year, 1,600 used, proposed 1,900 used the year before. What buildings need rehab for which you haven't spent any money, virtually any money yet so far?
The existing building down there, at some point, we're gonna have to.
Which building?
The existing, 416 West Broadway, the
Oh,
old,
okay.
the old
the old office.
1970. There's gonna need to be quite a bit of money put into that building at some point, whether it's energy, probably new siding, new doors, new insulation. Quite frankly, the 10 grand's not gonna cover it, but it's for bollards and, roof repairs, things like that come up.
Do you plan on encumbering what you have currently?
Yes, definitely.
Plus an additional 10?
Yes.
In the proposed budget?
Yeah. I mean, the energy, that's a major capital expense, which I believe is on the capital improvement for upgrading the siding and everything else. But it's trying to get us to there.
How is it being used currently?
The building funds.
The building, how is that building being used?
Well, I have, my entire staff they check in the morning, it's a break room, it's my foreman's office, I got 5 mechanic bays down there, and it's storage of all.
I'm aware of these things, I'm just speaking for the public that might be
Yes.
viewing.
Yeah.
Okay, very good, thank
But
you.
it's, you know, it's the main building that the city uses. It's heated, and it's gonna need some
It's
energy.
tightening up, yeah. Okay. I won't leave you any further on that one. I have nothing else on public works. Council Durance, do you have anything else?
I have nothing else.
Councilor Tyros, do you?
No further items.
Okay. Moving on to the airport. Mr. Mayor, you can address that?
Yes, I can, Mr. Chairman. The manager position that was added in the supplemental budget, we had that posted for some time. We had to go and repost it a couple times for lack of interest. We are having interviews for this position next Monday, so we will have someone hired by the end of the fiscal year on this one. However, since no one was in this position yet, I did not include a 2% cost of living adjustment in it, because quite honestly, no one has been in that to have that adjustment yet at this time. So that is.
It's not needed, you don't think it's needed as an incentive to fill the position?
It'd be around $150.
Yeah, it's small money.
Yeah. In terms of the other line items in the budget, those were for the most part level funded, except for vehicle supplies, because we are going to need a new lawnmower at the airport. And that is,
Well, there was a significant increase of repairs and maintenance. It was budgeted for 11,000, only less than 1,000 has been used, and you're proposing an additional 11,000 for the new fiscal year.
that was mainly being done for repairs to the administration building that is at the airport. I feel like not having the manager is the reason why a lot of that wasn't spent this past year, as Mr. Bonk had been overseeing most of that, and then he retired. But I do understand what you're saying with the 5 and the 3 that were spent before. I would be okay if that went down to 5,000 if we needed to make a cut somewhere.
Well, the only reason do you plan on encumbering the
Yes.
money that's unused?
Yes,
So then if an additional 5 would be.
an additional 5 would be okay.
Okay, why don't we do that then? I move, Councilor Durance, your thoughts?
It sounds like the mayor's comfortable with that. We have the funds from the previous years, so I would move to reduce this line item 608 or on our sheet here to
So 52030?
52030. Yes, from 11,000 to 5,000, cut of $6,000.
Councilor Tyros, your thoughts?
I'm in agreement, I think that's a good idea.
Would you second the motion?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion is the motion made and seconded is to cut $6,000 from city line item 52030, repairs and maintenance. Is there any further discussion? If not, Councilor Durance?
Yes.
Councilor Tyros?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Anything else on the airport, Councilor Tyros?
No, thank you.
And Councilor Durance?
No, my question was around the repairs and maintenance, so I am all set to move on.
Okay. Youth Commission, Mayor, do you have anything you want to comment on that?
This is flatline from what we've done. We haven't really had an active youth commission in the past 4 years. Chairman Fort is here with us as well, but it is something that we'd like to get back up and running here in the city. I mean, granted, we had the COVID-19 pandemic for 2 years as well, but they're who oversaw the movies in the park, and that was really the only thing the Youth Commission did prior to that, for several years prior to that. I shouldn't say the only time prior to that. Working with Dan Fort and the other members of the commission that we finally recently just appointed as full membership.
Right.
I think they'll get back up and running.
Okay, so you think there's nothing, so, I mean, there's 2 items in the budget that total $1,000, all right. Okay. Unless anybody else has a comment on this budget, we'll move on.
I have no concerns.
Hearing none, recreation. Mr. Mayor?
This is the recreation. I Every year I keep saying we have to change the names of this and the Municipal Recreation to further differentiate between the two of them. However, we just have to come up with the correct name to do it in. This recreation is overseen by the Department of Public Works. It's overseeing the different playgrounds that are in the city. It also includes our Christmas lights at Monument Park in Lafayette Square and the other areas around the city that we put lights in the trees during the holiday season. This does not include the lights that are in the Chair City Park, which is in front of the Bullnose Building downtown, or the other lights downtown that are funded through the Memorial Lights campaign that Gardner Square 2 puts on. But this is the city's funding portion for the lights in the city's parks, for the holiday lights and decorations, the celebrations, special events, etc. That covers the police detail at the food truck festival. Playground improvements are the, as it says, equipment improvements at the playground. That was a lot of piece together. And then the incumbent improvements is just stuff we didn't spend in the previous fiscal year that we can use with the next year's budget to get more equipment there. Because as you can see in the department's request of $100,000, we can only do about $20,000 a year.
Okay. And there was encumbered for playground improvements, 10.6 from the previous year.
Yes,
Is that still there, or is that?
that's still there.
Okay, so so that's 30,600 that's available for playground.
Yes.
If I may, what I try to do is encumber as much as I can. You know, for instance, the holiday light and decorations, I believe last year was like, we had almost $2,000 left. I'll encumber that and I'll put it down into playground to try to put as much money into playground improvements as possible. Try to save it up. Maybe we can buy a piece of equipment or something to put at one of the playgrounds.
Where is the dog park maintenance or improvements?
It's all out of this.
It's in this, because there was some talk about adding a facility there.
Yeah, I believe community development is getting, they have a grant to build a
Okay,
pet.
that's community development.
This is funny you brought up about moving. I personally would recommend moving the playground improvements and the covered playground improvements into the DPW line item. And just, because it's all municipal grounds, it's all under my
Sure.
department. And
Municipal grounds is all different.
yeah, but it's
It's a whole other thing.
it's all, you know. it's
So that
all-
was a whole department by itself?
Yeah, so that's what I would like to see get done, and then maybe, you know, then the holiday lighting, you have city celebrations and lights or whatever.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, well, that can be worked out.
We can, yeah. But yes, the new shade pavilion that's being added to the dog park is being funded through a grant from the Stanton Foundation, which gave us the grant to
To build it.
to start with. It'll have a new concrete slab and a roof over to provide some type of shade there in the park. that doesn't
Yeah, I
exist.
can get brutally hot there, so.
Unfortunately, it's wet there too, so
Yeah.
we're trying to find a spot to put it that it won't sink.
Or be mosquito infested.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
dog park skating rink.
Yeah.
And there is a dog park gift account, there's also a skateboard gift account, I believe there's another gift account that the city has.
Okay.
also.
So it has
If there's a
other funds
donation.
available.
Yes.
If there's a donation, give it.
That's in a revolving fund.
Yes, would you like the balances of all the revolving and gift funds that we have? Would that be helpful for the council for the budget?
Why don't you ask the council president about that, I think, if you think,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes, yeah, I don't think it'd be, you know, for the revolving funds, I think that might be helpful.
Yeah.
So that's one of the items on the.
It is, yeah, the authorizations of how much can be spent every year out of them is on the council's agenda for that.
Yeah.
I'd take that to right now, but
Yeah,
that's.
it's not a bad idea. Anything else about recreation that Councilor Tyros?
No, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Lawrence?
I just, the $100,000 that was requested by the department, is that similar to the request for vehicles where this is what we'd like?
Yeah, the thought on this is,
Yeah.
down at OC Playground, you have the wooden structure that is,
Oh, the
needs some
up,
maintenance.
down, all around?
Yeah, it needs some maintenance. So a few years ago, we got a donation from the Rock Foundation. We also had the city contribute, and there was another
It was a state earmark.
state, and so we removed a portion of it. We built a portion of a new playground out there. My thought was another $100,000 might remove the rest, or at least a large portion of that wooden structure, and put something a little less splintery.
You're taking away our stuff down all around playground?
Yeah, it's a.
I put a lot of work into that.
Yeah, with a lot of splinters and calls.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
And bees and, yeah,
It's been there since, what, like 88 maybe?
that was the thought. That's what the request was for.
I'm surprised it lasted this long.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. And moving on to municipal recreation, we have Mr. Ford here. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to comment on the budget?
Sure thing, Mr. Chairman. The department head salary on this one does cover a portion of Director Ford's salary that's also split with the schools as well. $30,000 comes from the Municipal Recreation Department, and $60,000 comes from the school department's budget. Aside from that, here, everything, it was flatlined except for part-time playground salary and wages, and that's to adjust for the increase in minimum wage that will take place on January 1st of this year.
Okay. Well, we have coach's salary and wages that was budgeted for $3,500. Is that kind of being used now?
Yeah, so most of those actually take place, so a couple things there. Most of those take place May and June, so we've got
So
a couple
it's not
of
reflected in
employees.
current
Yeah,
expenditures?
so summer rec basketball, we have the track program we run a football program, that's what we pay those out of.
And that comes, this was,
If-
after this was printed?
If we don't end up with a volunteer that will run it for free, right? So like biddy basketball this year, which we would typically fund that position, I ran it this year because my kid's in biddy basketball. I didn't take a coach's stipend for it, right? So like me and another parent volunteer just ran it, but those are there in the instances where if we don't have someone that can, like if I'm not there to run it or someone else isn't able to do that, we can pay someone to make it reliable and build it, so.
The former high school principal, Bob Gillis, started in doing it on a volunteer basis because his son was in it, and then he ran it for, I think, 20 years, so
Yep.
be careful what you get into.
Yep, do a lot of t-ball and soccer too, so there's, that's what those are there for. Some will get spent. The goal is not to spend it, like just to spend it. Again, if we get volunteers, we have volunteers that will run it. That stuff happens, so.
Yeah, I understand. I just thought it showed nothing being expended, so I assumed it
Well,
because it's being spent in the
my other
intervening period.
My other guess is, just to be frank, we did have one that we did pay, we had two that were coaches that we paid. My guess is it came out of part-time wages instead.
I see.
That's my guess. I don't see where, like, I don't
Okay.
pretend to go dig where the money came from.
So but
We'll spend it.
you need the money in the event that you don't have volunteers?
Correct,
Yeah,
yep.
gotcha.
It probably is worth noting as well too, if you look at the compensation schedule that's been proposed too, there is another position that's in this department that doesn't come into the municipal budget as it's funded out of the revolving account. So if you see that there is a assistant director as well, in case Dan can't make it to one of the events or just isn't able to be there in person, that's the basically assistant department head for them, but it's funded out of the recreation department's revolving account.
Okay. Okay, but-
That's why it's not reflected here in the budget, but it's in the compensation schedule.
Yeah, we'll raise another, I wanna say $100,000 through user fees over the course of this summer, through summer camp, and out of that we fund, obviously we need more than $26,000 in camp counselors and supervisors, so. That's how we pay for all those, which will include, given the uptick in, enrollments this year, it'll improve, it'll cover an extra supervisor, an actual department assistant, like Mr. Mayor said, and more staff, because we'll obviously need it, so.
Okay. And you feel you'd be able to get the staff you need?
I can hire, oh yeah, I'll turn people away, so. I'm the one person apparently that doesn't have to worry about hiring people, everybody wants to do this job in the summertime, so.
Okay.
What's your enrollment right now?
270,
For,
summer camp, 274,
wow,
that's it this morning.
what was it last, or did you have it last year?
Yeah, I think it was 195 or 205, somewhere in that number last
And then
year.
20 probably was a.
Zero.
Yeah.
The year before that, we were 80, and the year before that,
Big increase then.
yeah. So,
That's great.
but we'll be right on the penny. It's one of those things where at the end of the year, I'm gonna be right there, or come to the city council and saying, hey, I'm short a couple grand. We bring it right to the dollar as close as we can, so.
Well, you might even get up to the level of the rec department participation that Henry Journal allowance when he read it.
He I know the director has talked about doing some of the things that used to go on in the city with the playground program.
Yep.
But it is fantastic to see.
When I was 8 years old, we went to Red Sox baseball game, Pat Day, day game,
Yep.
and I was amazed with the troughs that are used.
Those have been replaced.
Yeah.
Have they all been replaced?
Yes.
Alright.
But I got lost coming out, when everybody was leaving I've been so scared my whole life.
We're gonna try to get them the Dunson back safely this
Yeah,
year.
there
That's
you
our,
go.
that's our big exciting project, so.
We're not strapping the chair to a flatbed and bringing it down there and having Deborah sit on it or anything?
Probably not, no, I don't think that'll be there, no, I need wiffle ball bats,
Okay.
that's what we'll spend our money on.
Okay. Very good. I have no other questions about the municipal recreation. Do you, Councilor Taros?
I did not, and I'm happy to hear the participation numbers going up.
Yeah, that's great news. Councilor Gerlaus?
Nothing else? Thank you, Director Ford.
Cool.
Okay, thank you for coming.
No
No recommended cuts.
Cool, appreciate it.
Sewer. Mr. Mayor, you want to address it initially?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, again, this reflects a 2% cost of living adjustment in the aggregate salaries of the department heads and the non-union staff that are in here. 2% cost of living adjustment in the clerical staff that are represented by the AFSCME union, and then the same breakdown of the laborers position that was in the public works department as well, for those who are covered under the DPW Association union as well. If Director Arnold has anything else he'd like to say, if not, happy to answer any questions here.
Just, again, looking at the maintenance crew, because of one of the things that might jump out at you is the assistant director salary wages was cut. That was under my recommendation based on the salary adjustment that we have to do under the new contract with the union. I was trying to offset the, more or less the hit that the water and sewer department was gonna do. So I cut the assistant director position, and that should offset the increase in salaries to the crew.
That increased in the rate of pay or increase in the number of people?
Rate of people staying the same, we're not increasing rate of pay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
that
just
was,
the rates of pay of
Yes.
contract to,
right. I couldn't do to the water and sewer system as we could do the highway. I feel, just given the staffing levels that we had, I couldn't afford to cut staff, so.
I understand. Well, this is still a relatively new enterprise to taking over water and sewer.
Yeah, it's been just a couple of years, but we feel we got a pretty good crew here, with what we
Was
have.
there a lot of carryover from the contractor?
Suez, when we took over the water.
When we took over water, did a lot of the people come over
Yes.
from them?
Yeah, we got most of them back, actually. It's just hard hiring people.
Yeah, it's just a tough market, labor market out there.
Again, some of the salaries are split.
Are split.
This is the 25, you're seeing the 25% of the sewer portion of a lot of salaries. Some line items carry actually a couple of, might carry a clerk and line 826. It has the $4,000 to cover the GIS coordinator, and then the rest of the salary for the sewer clerk. So it's just, some things are split up that way.
Yeah, that, it seemed odd on 826 that the request was substantially lower than how it was funded. Is that because of the way it was split up? You decided how to split it up?
Correct.
Yeah, and part of it was, I didn't know who was getting paid on what line item, the auditor knew, so when I submitted my budget, I had an error.
Okay, I understand.
And as you're going through the compensation schedule, again, the business manager is paid partly out of water, partly out of sewer. So that's split here as well, but that's not in the regular Department of Public Works budget.
I see. And that's a relatively new position for a couple of years because of the changeover? Because I see it wasn't funded
4
in
months?
Yeah, that was,
20 and 21.
that was funded as the supplemental budget that was passed by the council in November.
Okay.
Created, I should say, more than just funded.
And you've got a new position of engineer salary and wages, 831.
That's actually an intern. It's not really an engineer salary. It's just it's an intern that to offset either GIS help or city engineer. It's a line item that we carry.
Summertime,
Sometime, or even during if there's a local student that wants to come work for a couple hours, during the week and during the year. That's a line item as well.
okay.
That in turn reports to the city engineer, that's why that was
Okay.
listed as that.
Mhm. And so that'd be something new for the upcoming fiscal year?
We've had it.
Funded
Just hasn't
somewhere else?
been- well, it hasn't been expended, that's the thing, those are the actuals.
Yeah, the actual showed nothing since 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a break. We had an intern that had worked several years actually for the city, and she had left. So at that point, we were kind of caught up, but we're starting to fall behind with scans and imaging and whatnot, so.
OT, 832. We've got 25 grand in the current budget,
Yes.
5 grand of which you've used.
Yeah, it's a line item I have to carry if we have sewer backups, and I need to have the staff, if we have blockages, things like that.
The only reason and I understand the need for it, it's just that since 2,500 used in 20, 7,800 used in 21, 5 grand used in 22.
I mean, if I don't use it, it just goes back to the fund. It's not like I transfer salary items down to the operating budget, so it's just something that,
Well, I'm just, thinking at some point, if we're budgeting more than we need, then we're budgeting into the rates more than we need.
I think it would offset the following year, because the money would go back to the fund if it wasn't used, and then that is carried
But
over.
rates are based on projections, the projections are based upon existing budgets, projected budgets, right?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we're not using it, do we need, I understand it'll fall back, but that fallback number can be used as part of how we project the need for rates or rate increases. So what can you live with?
I have no idea, I mean, it's a,
Yeah, I understand, I'm just looking at.
I know though, this is the year. I mean, I wouldn't feel too comfortable with less than 20 in there if that was, I think 25 personally is a good number. I don't
Well,
think it's-
you haven't used, you've used barely 10% of it 1 year. Well, excuse me, 1 year you used.
yeah, that's-
Anyway. I suggested we cut 5 grand. And, if that hits, then you can, are you limited in when you can appropriate money from that fund?
Not for the enterprise.
You're not limited by, in the same way that you are with the municipal?
Correct, yeah.
I can't ask for a request until the money is.
No, that's what we're saying, you don't have to wait.
Until it's certified.
Yes.
So when free cash is certified, we also get the retained earnings, that's when you can put it out.
Okay, so it's limited in the same way with the retained earnings, appropriating from retained earnings for the fall,
Yes, but that wouldn't have to be done before the tax rate is set, unlike free cash you appropriating to a budget.
so not, we'd be able to, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna suggest that we cut 5 grand from the overtime budget. Any thoughts on that?
Not entirely, because the $5,000 in a $3.4 million budget. Doesn't seem, it's very significant overall. The director's comfortable with the $5,000 cut out. I'll remove the cut of $5,000 from that line item.
Okay, I'll second it for discussion purpose. Councilor Tarish, your thoughts?
It's possible, I think, I know it's one of those things that you can't predict, but I also think we're being quite reasonable, slightly modest and down, for it.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, Councilor Gerlaus?
Yes.
Councilor Taros?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that's OT is 51030. Let's see. Working out of grade. Not a big item, but it's never been used.
Again, it's new to this department running the crew.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that if the foreman's out, or if one of the higher employees, I'll say, the higher,
Higher paid people.
yes, if they're out and someone takes and does their job for, I don't know, I think in the contract it's more than 4 hours or 3 hours, they're
And
entitled
they're
to be more.
to the higher pay. Yeah.
So
I'm
it's
just saying it hasn't been used.
Yeah.
The need for it hasn't
There should be
arisen.
something in there, but
I agree.
I don't know how often someone's gonna be out, you know, if someone's either on vacation or gets injured or something like that, there again needs to be something in that line item to cover that, so contractually.
Your thoughts, Councilor?
Is there-
I don't want to be the initiative of every one of
Is
the.
there in the contract, there to be something in it, is there a number?
Oh, no, it doesn't say there has to be something in it, but
Okay.
they're entitled to
But it's
get paid if.
The rate of the hydrant person.
Yes, so they're entitled to that in their contract, so.
They do it for more than 4 hours in a shift,
I
or
believe that's
in a week, or?
Yeah.
I think it's 4 hours a day or 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
They're entitled for it.
Well, I just didn't know if you, I thought you were saying something in the contract stating the amount, is that,
No.
I was just misunderstanding, that's all.
It's a guess.
Yeah. I mean, the $141 back in 2020, nothing since. I mean, I would comfortable cutting it, I guess by $3,000 on this one, down to 2. I moved to cut it 3,000.
Councilor Tyros, your thoughts on this?
Second the motion to cut it by 3,000, I think that's reasonable.
Okay, I agree with the proposed cut. If there's no further discussion, Councilor Durance?
I have none.
No, your vote on the.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Yes,
Yes, on the motion.
on the motion, Councilor Tyros?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. I'm just making notes here. Nobody else will be able to read them. Next item I have is repairs to mains. Is there something in the works, something, a big thing that requires 100 grand this year that is so much higher than what we've used in the last several years?
Again, that is purchasing of meters, water main repairs, hydrants, leak detections. There's nothing specific as far as the project go, but I'm pretty confident that most of that will be spent.
Well,
And,
go ahead,
sorry.
Ms. Mayor.
And speaking with the business manager as well, we are looking at replacing several of the different mains throughout the city as well. It's something that we're looking at doing, seeing if we can do it through the Community Compact Grant Program, which would require a match on the city side of things. But our mains are, or not the mains, the meters, excuse me, are
20+ years old.
yeah, and a lot of them would need to either be recalibrated or replaced or something.
Does the proposal for a new line up to Crystal Lake from Crystal Lake up to the top of Reservoir Hill, does that factor into this at all?
No, this is just general maintenance repairs, purchasing of hydrants, replacement of, you know, existing infrastructure, water infrastructure.
And just for the record, I'm just looking at what's been spent over the last several years, 31,000 in 20, 23, 23.7, and 21, 53, 5,300 so far in 22. Why do we need so much more for the coming year?
Well, if you'll go back, when we started this water project, 3 years ago, I believe it was, we didn't do a lot of repairs in the system because of the water main replacement project that we were doing. So we were actually spending money, if you look, I believe we were spending money out of their encumbrance, what we encumbered over the last few years. So what looks like it was spent in this budget, we spent $96K out of the encumbered item, which is 862.
That was encumbered, how much has been used?
I would probably say we're pretty close to all of it.
Okay.
I can get you an exact number on that.
I see. Well, when you factor that into it, I understand. So the idea is to encumber what hasn't been used this year?
Correct.
That's,
Start.
that's another, that'd be another $95,000.
Yeah, which, it sounds like a lot, it doesn't go very far when we're buying a $6,000 hydrant.
So it just sounds like we're operating out of an encumbrance budget rather than a covered budget.
And it did happen because of the water project. I didn't, with my crew running around, we're doing inspections and trying to keep up with the water project over the last few years, so we haven't really
So
spent.
there's maybe some deferred maintenance that you need to catch up on?
That would be it. Yes.
Okay. Your thoughts on, any thoughts on that one?
It sounds like the money's gonna be, as the director talked about, is gonna be spent with the ability to do the work that needs to get done now, with the water project done, so I think it's something to keep an eye on maybe for next year, but, I'm fine with where it is.
Okay. Councilor Taros, anything on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was actually,
Let's see.
Director Arnold, you mentioned that a fire hydrant costs $6,000. Could you speak briefly on the status of the fire hydrants? I know we had a few in town that had been painted black or out of use. Is there a plan to get them back operational?
If they're painted black and they're downtown, they're on the low pressure system, which is the line that feeds, the old line that comes out of Crystal Lake. It's actually just a pressure of the lake that feeds the system. If they're painted black, they will not be replaced. And if they're downtown, they should be removed by now as part of the water project. It might depend on which one you're talking about, but most of those low pressure system hydrants are no longer in service.
Okay, that's helpful. I've gotten a few questions. Specifically, I think there's one on Betty Spring Road that I saw was out of use about them. So certainly if the budget item is high, but we can kind of fix some of those critical infrastructure devices in town.
Yeah, if there's, I'm sorry. If there's one on Betty Spring Road, that is within the water system itself, so if it's black, I'm concerned, so I'd have to check into that.
Maybe, Counselor, if you have information about it, you could provide the location to the director.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll follow up. Thank
Okay.
you.
Good enough. Next item, we're still in sewer.
I know, that's what we're talking about, I believe I made a mistake by saying that.
No. Continuing in sewer, item 845, professional development travel. There's been little to nothing spent over the last several years, and it's budgeted for 10 grand.
That's, again, licensing? No.
That would be licensing.
No, that's not licensing.
I mean, I encourage professional development and travel, but if it's not gonna get used, with no reason to budget for it.
I agree with that.
Concur.
I don't know if there was anything prior to 2020, if it was pre-pandemic travel for anything, any kind of professional development that has ceased. I think that's how far back we go.
I suggest we cut it in half.
I move to reduce it, item 52170 by $5,000.
Second.
Any further discussion, Councilor Taros?
No?
Okay, I just, I encourage you, if there are things programs or conferences that would be helpful in the operation of the department, then by all means, utilize it. But to budget, I mean, $75 was used in $20 and $21, $732.50 and 22. I think if you have $5 grand, I'd be more than receptive to an additional amount if it's needed. Any further discussion? Not, Councilor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilor Tyros?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And professional services, item 846. We budgeted, you were budgeted 28,000, used less than half of that so far, at least as of when this was, and it's proposed for 38,000 next year.
Maybe I can roll this all into, if you go down a couple of line items, you'll see the NPDS report, wastewater study was funded at 10 grand.
Which number?
Item 853, what I tried to do is instead of just doing individual line items, I put it all in professional services, so you'll see
Oh, I see what
the
you're
10
saying.
grand that was cut from NPDS permit, I stuck up in
Professional services.
professional services.
Okay.
It's pretty consistent with 2020 actuals and 21 actuals, so there, I assume that number will, is that number for the actuals for the current fiscal year.
Well, a lot of it has to do with what's mandated from the state for us to do. I have to hire a consultant to maybe do a report or something to get it into the state. Some of it's dumpsters, believe it or not, we pay for it out of professional services for the wastewater plant. So it kind of varies depending on what the regulatory agencies make us do. So.
So this year's possibly lower, just a lower year, but it seems like it's pretty close to what you're budgeting for though, in general.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty close. I can point out the chemical supplies, those are shooting through the roof from what I just spoke to, Veolia.
That was one of the ones I was going to ask about.
Vehicle supplies is this water and sewer reimbursement to, for fuel, vehicle fuel, and also, some of the maintenance and whatnot. That's another line item that's gonna jump out. Contract operations, and this is.
So that's Veolia? Yeah.
This is Veolia, so I believe I budgeted, I think I look at that contract and I budget a 3% jump from every, they're entitled to a minimum of 2, but the way their contract is set up is that they're entitled to the CPI adjustment. So I'm taking a stab in the dark what that's gonna be, and when I did this in February, I believe I adjusted it 4%. I think we're gonna be looking at like an 8.5% increase in their contract ops. So I may have to come in front of the council and ask for an adjustment on this. So I won't find out until January what their CPI contract is.
Oh, we'll have free cash.
Exactly.
So,
But, although this is, I don't know, you can use free cash to budget in a enterprise?
Retained earnings.
Retained earnings.
Retained earnings in
Yeah,
enterprise.
yeah. And just for the record, Veolia contract is the operation of the sewer treatment plant, the water treatment plant.
yep, Snake
And
Pond,
this- and-
all the pump stations as well.
Yep, and the sludge landfill?
Correct.
Okay, so, and that contract is, where are we in the contract?
I believe it's a 10-year contract, and it's got a 10-year renewable at the end, and I believe, I think we're in year 4 or 5?
Of the initial one?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just point out a syntax thing on the next line item, line number 851. That's the 340,000.
Well, that was my next question.
All right, if you go down to line number 820, you'll, the way it's set is the budget's here, however, expenditures are in the actual columns. That is what we reimburse the city in terms of health and,
820?
did I say that right? No, excuse me, 882. And 883, the transfers to the general fund. That's where that 340 comes in every year. So it's budgeted up here and then expended down below. That's the reimbursement to the general fund for indirect cost of health insurance, fringe benefits, things like that that are budgeted for in the general city's insurance line items in the general fund budget.
But it's allocated to
the employees of the enterprise
okay,
account.
employees of the sewer department enterprise.
Yes. So then that is what we budget to pay back, and once it does become expended and transferred, it goes down into the the 883 transfer to the general fund line.
Okay, I understand.
It also covers the insurance of all our buildings, and I believe it covers a portion of the salary of the financial part of the city as well as this
Yeah.
city solicitor, because we use their services for.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah.
And the vehicle insurance, I assume is part of that.
Yes.
I have a general
Yes.
motor vehicle policy.
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay,
The director is correct, it does cover portions of the salaries of the auditor, treasurer, and the purchasing director in City Hall.
Nice round number of 340,000.
The auditor comes up with that one together.
Remarkable, it adds up to it, it even doesn't. Facility maintenance.
Every year, the Veolia, the contractor, gives me it's a capital improvement line item. So between facility maintenance, and if you look down, there's also a large encumbered facility maintenance, along with
What number is that?
873. And also 872 is kind of the same type of line item. So they'll give me a line item, a capital improvement list of things that they feel might need replacement at the wastewater treatment plant. And we just did a large plant water, not to get into details, but for the centrifuge, that was a large chunk of change that's gonna come out of this line item. There's blowers, there's motors, so it's kind of, he gives me a capital improvement. I budget for it, whether they can make the repairs or whether the equipment breaks that year. It's just kind of a,
Well, you have encumbered $408,000,
yes.
and what has been used?
Again, that would be cover the plant water. They have a bunch of pumps.
I mean, in the current fiscal year, what has been spent from it?
There's a contract right now with Veolia to replace the plant water, which is.
Oh, okay.
There's that. There's, we're under a mandate to try to get nitrogen lowered. They're putting in a bunch of money for pumps and actuators and treatment for nitrogen. So it's money that's definitely going to be spent, because it's.
Well, it's just that amount of money must have been accumulated over the course of time.
I believe that was, when they gave me the capital improvement list, there was money taken out of interest, because it transferred down into that line item. And again, to get into the interest, when we're doing a project, like the repayment of the dewatering, I'm estimating a year in advance on what the repayment of those loans are gonna be for the upgrades at the wastewater plant, same as in the water. So we're taking a look at what I think I'm going to spend on the project and what's gonna be spent and what we're gonna have to borrow against. So I won't know what that interest payment's gonna be more or less until this time in the fiscal year. So I'm trying to budget something a year in prior for that. So I didn't spend money out of the interest, so I transferred it down into facility maintenance based on what Veolia's estimate for capital improvements.
So, I mean, it just seems like a very large amount of encumbered money.
It is, they're expensive in order to comply with the nitrogen and the blowers and the
Oh,
pumps and,
And that's in the works, those things are
Correct.
going to be happening in the upcoming fiscal year?
yes.
So you expect a lot of that, well, with the additional amount of 50 grand, it will be $450,000, $458,000?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Terrell?
Will that amount cover it, or will it be over that?
Based on what they gave me for, it should cover it, yes.
Nothing else?
Could you supply us with a, listing of the
Capital.
items, the capital items and the cost of each?
And just to give you an example, and this, I'm gonna talk about water again, is that, by doing this with interest loans and whatnot, where I took where I thought was gonna be the repayment for interest, I put it down into facility maintenance. We ended up with replacing and cleaning and the coating of the clear well in the Crystal Lake, which is about a $360,000 job, but because I encumbered money and brought it down into the facility line item, we were able to pay for that out of encumbered funds instead of taking it. So it was kind of an emergency. So.
I understand. Okay. I have no other questions about the sewer department budget.
Everything I had highlighted was hit, so I'm all set.
Councilor Tyros?
I think we talked about the same, thank you.
Very good. Let's go to water.
Same approach as far as salaries go. The cut, as far as the distribution of salaries between the city.
Right.
The cutting of the position of the assistant director's salary to offset the maintenance crew's increase. It's kind of a mirror of the sewer department as far as, salaries and whatnot. Overtime, you'll see, budgeted 35. Prior we spent 50. This year we're already up to 36. You just don't know when water breaks, so that's.
Well, we certainly know that from I noticed that you also have the engineer's salary and wages, the new thing. So the actual amount for the intern is twice this amount? You have the other half in the sewer?
Yeah, correct.
So is this for one intern?
One or two, depending on what the needs are at the time.
Yeah.
And length of time.
Excuse me?
And as well as length of time that the intern is here too. If it's over the course of a college semester,
I see.
weeks, it's span longer than just someone who's here for just the summer months.
Yeah, I understand. Sometimes, for engineering, there's work you can do in a semester that that you get credit for from the college. I know Nicholas had that at General Dynamics at Electric Phone for a semester when he was in college. He got credit for it. So. Okay. Similar kind of thing with working out a grade.
Yes.
Again, it's, I mean, I know you don't know when it's going to be needed, but it hasn't been needed. So if we treated this similar to what we did in the water department, would that be satisfactory? I think we, working out a grade, we cut 3,000 from that.
Correct. I would move to recommend cutting 30,000 out of this as well.
Second.
Okay, the motion is to cut 3,000 from city account number 51102. That's correct. Any further discussion? If not, Councilor Dearlowitz?
Yes.
Councilor Tyros?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay. Moving on. It's proposed to spend, to budget 50,000 for new equipment, and it's been funded for 50,000. What new equipment do you anticipate?
What I try to do is replace at least one pickup a year, so it's not buying multiple equipment. When I first took over the water and sewer department, it seemed like every vehicle needed to be replaced on year one, and so I'm trying to just offset it so it's just less of a hit to the
Yeah, I mean, that
department.
makes, how many pickups are there in this department?
Offhand, I would have to guess 12, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
between water and sewer, because they're split, they usually try to split it between water and sewer.
Yeah. Okay. So this is to replace one pickup?
Correct. And again, I would encumber it. If I don't spend it, I encumber it, because we need to roll it into a larger piece of equipment, so.
Do you have encumbered new equipment?
I believe I do. 162, which I think this has since been spent to, I ordered a new 10-wheeler for the water department to replace an existing one, which is $221,000 for a new 10-wheeler.
We have encumbered new equipment from last year of 162,000.
Correct. I believe that, since then, I believe that line item is zeroed out, but
You've used it?
yes, for, again, a new 10-wheeler, which is $221,000.
And you may get in 6 months.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
get in line.
the price of equipment, when I first started, the sweeper was $95K. It is $300,000 and a year wait. So, to give you how expensive equipment
So
is.
if you want to spend $500,000, you can get it sooner, right?
Yeah, it doesn't-
Okay.
Doesn't go very far.
Communications goes from using $3,000, it's line 909. Goes from spending 3,000, budgeting 10,000.
Yeah, I have to look at that. I don't know why I just said.
And the most that's been spent is in 2020 is 4375. So if we cut that by $5,000, would that cover it, do you think?
I would think so.
Move to cut, item 52150 by $5,000.
Second.
Any discussion, Councilor Tyros, you have a comment?
No comment.
Councilor Turlowitz?
Yes.
Councilor Tyros?
Yes.
I vote yes. Similarly, we've got telecommunications, the next one. It's $3,000 used out of 15,000 for the current year, 5,900 used in 2020, 3,300 round numbers in 2021, budgeted at $15,000.
Again, I don't have a note saying why it went up that high, so I can't defend it. So-
Well, do you need time on it?
No,
or
no, I think, I think
If we cut, I don't know, what do you think, Councilor Gilroy?
I mean, seeing the pass cost was high, 6,000, I'd say cut it in half and cut it by
Keep it at 7,500?
Keep it at 7,500.
Cut 7,500, your thoughts on that, Councilor Tyros?
My only thought is I noticed that for the sewer department, the budget $10,000 as well, so, and it also didn't come close. I know that's working backwards a little bit in our packet, but, I guess I just don't know if it was booked at 10,000 for a contract or for a reason, but
Sure, yeah, I mean, a new phone system, or?
I don't know if I was figuring radios for the trucks or something, but I don't have a note, so
Okay.
I don't honestly know.
Well, the motion is to cut $7,500 from the line item 52150.
I'll second.
This one's 52151. Communications.
Telecommunications, excuse me.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you for correcting me. Is there further discussion of that, Councilor Gerlowitz?
Yes.
Councilor Tyros?
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay. Chemicals, you indicated were going to be much higher this year.
Yeah, I'm anticipating that. And that's before I made this budget. I'm sorry, that was after I made this budget.
Right, so you anticipated maybe higher than this?
Yes, and the same with the contract operations that we had discussed before. I'm anticipating about an 8.5% increase. I budgeted a 4 in this, and I believe it's gonna be about an 8.5%. So that might need an adjustment.
So this is also Veolia.
Correct.
And indirect cost reimbursement of $350 is similar,
Yes.
as you explained in sewer?
Yes.
That's down below here somewhere.
Yeah, 948. Transfer to the general
I don't know, water system software model, 920.
So, we have a hydraulic model of the water system that we built several years ago. Where more or less, if a developer comes in or Lowe's wants to come in, and we can plug in what their use might be and what the impact to the water system will be. And we also.
And what kind of improvements might be needed in order to serve them?
Correct, and we would put that burden on the development. The same with fire flow, we would see what they need for fire flow and make sure we can supply fire flow for them. It's gonna need to be upgraded with all the water changes that we're doing in the system. We haven't upgraded it in 3 years. So we're gonna have to spend some funds on having our consultant update that with all the new pipes and sizes and C values and whatnot. So,
Mhm. Yeah, makes sense. And that's new money, you don't have encumbered money for that?